It's that time of year again when the hills are alive with the sound of GT3 cars. Welcome everybody to the total 24 hours of Spa. It is the fourth race of the Blancpain GT Series Endurance Cup. It is the annual 24-hour race here in the Ardennes, an event that for many, many years was the domain of touring cars, now very much part of GT racing folklore, and with over 60 cars. We've had free practice this morning, we've had the bronze test earlier on in the week, now we start to get into the serious business. Pre-qualifying coming up, they have 1 hour for this session, then we will have the qualifying session and the night qualifying session taking us from 8 o'clock to midnight. So 1 hour and then a break, and then 4 hours give or take, with a half-hour interval to round out the evening here. We had a fair bit of rain overnight. It was a bit grotty this morning. Track temperature, and it is now dry, 20.1 degrees. It's been pretty humid all day, but you never know from 1 minute to the next what it's going to do at Spa. That is one of the beauties of this superb event at a fabulous circuit. David Addison and John Watson with you for this evening's on-track activity. And John, trying to pick a winner, first of all, is a nightmare because it's such a competitive entry, but what an entry we've got.
Absolutely stunning. But before we go any further, we call this it's an endurance event. 24 hours of Spa. Think about this. I think this race is now 24 1-hour sprints, flat out between stops, fuel, tyres, driver changes, and I think the endurance element will probably be more with the team trying to keep up with the action that's going to take place over these next 24 hours. It's going to be nuts.
Absolutely, and that's one of the beauties of the event, because there's the race in itself, there's the championship situation to factor in, you've got the classes, there's overall, Pro-Am, and there's also one entry in the National Challenge for the monobrand, the one-make cars, and with such a rich entry, well, where to start? Let's go with Mercedes, who had good qualifying pace up until penalties last year. This car, number 19, new livery, you'll notice, is in the hands of Eduardo Mortara, Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello. It's been a quick car in both endurance and sprint this season. It's run by the ACA ASP organisation, Jerome Policon's team, and it's going to be there or thereabouts in a race where, yes, speed is absolutely crucial, but so too is keeping out of trouble and not making mistakes and spending as little time in the pits as you can to make sure you get to the end safely.
And tyre management. We've got a set of tyres for Pirelli, which have the intention of being able to run a double stint. In other words, as previous years, everybody was changing tyres after every driver stint or after every pit stop, after every approximately 1 hour. The tyre is potentially a two-stop or a two-session tyre. Not every team is confident that it'll work for them. So those that are uncertain, and we've yet to be told what the precise amount of time is the minimum time for a pit stop, but what is the maximum. We think it's going to be around about 90 or 91 seconds for the minimum and 130 for the maximum, so that includes this very long pit lane entry, and then you go around the inside of La Source and all the way down the hill past the, what you might call the historic pit lane and pits, to the exit all the way back up beyond the top of Radio. So teams are still waiting to find out what will be those two magic numbers, because for some people they will be magic.
And factor in the weather, and factor in the traffic, and factor in safety car periods. The drivers' briefing yesterday, attended in the local theatre in town, addressed to all the drivers by Alain Adon, the race director, explaining how he will treat safety car periods and where the safety car will be deployed and how it's all going to work. But for now, the teams have to concentrate on lap times. You're looking at number 90 Mercedes. It is shown as Eduardo Mortara behind the wheel of it, and he has gone second fastest on a 2:24. The car behind, the Lamborghini, with Phil Keane, that's the fastest thus far, or the faster in fairness. We've only had really two proper lap times, but Phil Keane, a 2:23.233. He was very impressive here in British GT. He really is still, for reasons unknown, an underrated British driver, but Mark Lambert Barwell said he's on fire at the moment. Anything you put him in, any circuit, any of the Barwell fleet of Lamborghinis, he just makes it absolutely fly. Times as each car comes across the line, shuffle the order. We've got down to the 2:21s now, because through has gone 97, which has got Ahmad Al-Hafi, Salah Yolak and Johnny Adam as the drivers, but with Ewan Hankey as the fourth. Ewan is behind the wheel, and he has just done the fastest lap time thus far, 2:21.5. But it's all going to tumble as the session goes on, and yes, times are important to a degree because you want to know what your car is capable of, but by the same token, you're trying to factor in a driver cycle. Early in the day, for example, in the free practice session, Barwell did a race in very early on to try and work out what sort of a stint they could get. That's a team that's really struggled from tyre delamination, right rear corner, so they wanted to try and work on a setup and then do a simulated run and see whether or not the tyre life was going to be okay. So it's not just a case of driving around for an hour, is it?
No, a lot of teams will have a lot of homework to do, and if you have got an issue where you're using the tyre more, in particular on the left or the right rear, then is going to be useful for you, then you do have to make a car change. The thing that maybe will work to the advantage of some of the teams is that when we were here, for example, a fortnight earlier for the pre-event test, the ambient temperatures were much warmer. At the minute, it's about 20 Celsius track temperature, very similar. So the track and ambient temperatures are actually, I would say, pretty ideal for good quick laps. Quickest lap was just changed the Bentley, so it's up to 220.7, which is what, 0.3 of a second away. So already on that second lap for the Bentley number 8, it's virtually at the level that we were after the 1 hour session that we had earlier today.
And we've also had a report that at turn 14, wide and back on again, has got Nicholas Pola in the orange one Team Lazarus Lamborghini. What can Phil Keane do on his next lap? Goes over the timing line, and the Barwell run Lamborghini Huracan a little bit down on its previous lap, even though he's shadowing, or possibly because he's stuck behind, depending on your point of view. The Mercedes, look at the long line of cars coming out of the bus stop. We've got Lamborghini, of course, with a slightly new livery on 63, which we know goes well in 3-hour endurance races and goes well in 1-hour sprints, but how's it going to go in 24 hours?
Well, this is the car, and this is the driver on board who actually set the fastest lap earlier in the day. So Mirko Bortolotti, and that time has now been eclipsed because the 76 has already gone in to below the 2-minute 20s with it. In fact, as we're talking, times continuing to improve. 2:19.929. That's pretty impressive. It's the Audi, it's the ISR Audi. And interestingly, there's a lot of British involvement in that car. I think a certain James Robertson, who is well known in motor racing circles, principally in single-seater racing, but he is part of the engineering in that car.
Interesting, isn't it? How many?
Well, maybe it's the sister 76, but there are 2 Brits working in the ISR teams. James Robertson is one of them.
Dave Benbow.
Dave Benbow.
Yeah, he's on 75. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Now we've got down to a 2:19 now from Mercedes number 75, which is, sorry, Audi number 75, I should say, the ISR car of Clement Schmidt at the wheel of it, 2:19.9.
Great news, 4th quickest currently, Kevin Estra. And he's not in the McLaren.
No, because he's now a Porsche factory driver. Last year, of course, he was in the wall early on, wasn't he? Remember, he had that rush of blood to the head after a few drive-through penalties, and then he came out of the pits having served one and wiped out a Ferrari, and we had that lengthy safety car period with barrier damage. There he is. Look at the back of the shot, 117. It's one of the Kuss Team 75 Bernhardt cars, Timo Bernhardt's team. But Kevin Est, Porsche factory driver, and that is a potential winning car. We'll come to it in a moment as you look at 63.
Say that again, please.
Potential winning car. The Porsche is a potential winning
Excellent.
car. Yes. I need to point out, everybody, that John and I feel there aren't enough Porsches. John particularly is a huge Porsche fan, and it is great to see, we've had Manthey doing it for the last couple of years, but another potential winning Porsche.
Excellent. Just watching Mirko Bortolotti and a lot of other drivers likewise, that it has been noted in notes from the race director that track limit abuses are going to be pounced upon, and we're seeing it already. Car 4385 must respect track limits at turn 17. That's the exit of Blanchimont. Car 1642 must respect track limits at turn 17. That's Blanchimont as well. What is it about Blanchimont that drivers feel it's in order just to run wide, use the track? You know, you've got, well, wide open spaces. If it's there to be used, they're going to use it, but they may get times deleted if they do it consistently.
It's interesting that you're right, it is all happening coming through Blanchimont, but yesterday in the driver's briefing, it was stressed that the really difficult place to police is Radion. In other words, through Eau Rouge and up the hill, it's that part of the track. There is a judge of fact there, and because he's a judge of fact, there is no appeal. So he will write a report or send a report over the radio to the race director, and there's this increasing scale of penalties. The first time it's a warning, then it's a driving standards flag, then it could be a message to the team to say you're on your last warning, then it's going to be a drive-through, then it's sit in the pit lane, lose a few minutes of your session, and of course in the race, drive-throughs, stop-goes, and they get more and more draconian.
I guarantee you that judge of fact has suddenly probably made about 100 of his newest, bestest, closest friends ever. And he wonders why.
As he's there with his clipboard, busily trying to look the other way or make sure he doesn't get the wrong car. Because that's the other problem. You see one car go wide, you drop your head to write on your clipboard, and you miss the next one. So it's not an exact science, and it's the same in other categories, of course. But
I do hope he's going to get some relief.
I hope there's an army of them. I hope there's a man with eye drops as well to keep his eyes fresh. Could have Specsavers do an advert based on his efforts, couldn't you? 97, this is the Ewan Hankey Aston Martin pushing on. Ewan, who's not one of the regulars in that car, good to have him in it. So he goes to the track time here for Tom Ferrier's TF Sport Equipe to get a bit more mileage under his belt. Fastest 75, we had Clement Schmitz at the time. Felipe Albuquerque has taken that car over. The ISR Audi, certainly one to watch this weekend, but there's a whole gamut of ones to watch.
Now, I'm talking in the press room with some of our colleagues, and they all, give us a view. Tell us who's gonna do well. I have a feeling, and it may be because whether we're going to get a rain-free race, well, that would probably be a miracle. But there are 4 front mid-engine car marks: Mercedes, Bentley, BMW, and the sole Aston Martin. I just have a feeling that those 4 brands, in a race where you could have changeable conditions, and because of the nature of those cars, the way they fundamentally handle and not quite the knife edge, and also, more importantly, maybe, is how they manage their time. I just have a feeling that a front mid-engine car could be the way to go. I mean, look, there's the Porsche. Doesn't get more extreme. The engine hanging out behind the rear axle. It could win the race as well.
Yeah,
and that's almost the antithesis of the mid-front engine car.
And Kevin Est, Michael Christensen, and Lawrence Van Thor, the 3 drivers. That's another stellar combination.
Oh, yeah, I mean, just as long as they all keep their heads.
Yeah, indeed. And as I say, Kevin plotted his copybook last year, but a very, very fast driver. When he keeps out of trouble, he is a man to beat. And so too Mirko Bortolotti, who's now gone top of the times in 63 Lamborghini, 219.4 we're now down to. But the Porsche, as I say, it's not Manthey upholding factory honour because they've come up short really for the last couple of years. So this is a team, Timo Bernhardt's squad, that has had great success over the last couple of years. It's a young team as well within the ADAC GT Masters, the German GT category. And like a number was on duty just a week ago in Holland.
Yeah, this is the GT3, effectively as we've known it. It's not the 911 RS that is raced in WEC, which has the engine directly behind where the driver's sitting. So they've rotated the position of the engine and gearbox in that car. That's something way down the road for the future. This is essentially your bog standard RSR GT3.
So far, it's holding its own. It is 11 tenths down on the ultimate pace, but of course, until we get to proper qualifying, then we'll wait and see really what the proper times are. And of course, there is Super Pole tomorrow to determine the pointy end of the grid. We'll bring you that live, of course, as well. So, fastest lap time is Mirko Bortolotti. He has now pitted. Kevin Est, 5th fastest at the start of the lap, breaks the beam now and stays 5th. That was a slightly slower lap time, but it's not all about quick laps at the moment.
No, I think it simply, you want to get all 3 drivers comfortable. They've got 45 minutes remaining, so I suspect each is going to do maybe a run of 7-8 laps, come in, exchange, do a driver change, do a simulated race stop where possible.
Jimmy Erickson in the Battlefield Mercedes. It could be a good weekend for the fan with this because his brother is here racing in Formula 3, Joel, but Jimmy is behind the wheel of this car that's 14th fastest at the moment, one of the HTP fleet. Of course, Mercedes going back to the earlier incarnation, the older SLS AMG GT3, very much a car to have around here. Am I right in saying that there's no Ben Schneider in the entry this year, or have I missed it?
Well, I think there is a Ben Schneider, but I keep having to look through. But what's interesting for me with this 84 car, who will HTP put into the car? Wow, look at that. Look at the rubber just laid. Now, there's not much traction control dialed in to the 84 Mercedes to leave rubber like that coming through Les Combes. But will it be Frank Pereira? Well, I got a feeling that in Paul Ricard, maybe Maximilian Buch wasn't over the moon, that he didn't get to do that final qualifying run. And Frank Pereira, who comes into the team, well, he's been in the team now half a year. Part of the reason was maybe Max was a little bit too comfortable in the team, and just a little, little bit of a shove, make sure he's not falling off.
And certainly Frank Pereira has been very, very quick, which is exactly why he's there in the first place. It could well be that he is put into that car for Superpole. In the meantime, Jimmy Erickson, in his first year of GT racing, interesting that if you go back a couple of seasons, Joel Erickson, his brother, was busy battling for 4 honours in Germany with Marvin Dienst. Dienst has very quickly gone to GT racing, but Joel Erickson still in Formula 3, single-seater route. Jimmy Erickson got as far as GP2 as was, but has now switched to GT racing and going very strongly. So he's rumbling his way now up through the Cours Paul Frère, up towards Blanchimont, and then towards the end of the lap. This is a 1-hour session. We've had just about the first 15 minutes of it, as you look at the Mercedes now that accelerates towards the bus stop.
Just noticing on the timing and scoring, a black and white sporting flag for car 43. That's the Straka McLaren for disrespecting track limits. Car 59, same deal. Straka Racing also McLaren. I mean, what are the McLarens doing that they're getting same corner, same issue?
Here's your sideways.
Watch, here we go. Now, you've got a load of adjustment on your traction control. That's almost dialed out.
There's the Kaspersky Ferrari, the Fisichella Chiocci Collado car in the pit lane. Has that done a lap time yet? It has, but clearly all is not well for that. It is 27th fastest. We've not yet had a lap out of Nicolas Pollard, nor 58 Straka McLaren. Ben Barnicoat shown as being behind the wheel. It's done an installation lap, but no more. But of course, teams might still be working through a program here.
I mean, as a approximate guide earlier in the day, I think it was the top 12 were covered by just less than a second, which, early in a session on a 7-kilometre racetrack, 19 corners, as the Aston comes in and slots itself into what will be, come the start of this race, 4:30 on Saturday afternoon, and thereafter for a full 24 hours, a very busy pit lane.
And they're going back into the session is the Good Smile entered Mercedes. Good Smile Racing, the Team Mukio for Nobuteru Taniguchi, Tatsuya Kataoka and Kamui Kobayashi. And you notice on the front of it, R.I.P. Chester Bennington of Linkin Park. Last year, of course, we had a Linkin Park-backed Mercedes after his tragic death a few weeks ago. Now there, in the pit lane, is the TF Sport Aston Martin. Does Ewan Hankey stay behind the wheel? I wasn't paying enough attention to see if anyone got out and somebody else got in, John, but...
The door's open.
Yeah.
Whether that indicates anything or not. 42. So that's Straka Racing, Nick Leventis, Lewis Hamilton and Craig Fleming.
Lewis Williams.
No urgency, obviously no need to be urgent at this point. Still got the 63 Lamborghini Mirko Bortolotti quickest overall on 2 minutes 19.4. 75 Audi of Philippe Albuquerque, second quickest. Sister car Frank Stippler, third quickest, covered, well, those 3 cars covered by half a second. First of the Pro-Am cars is the Aston Martin in 5th place. Looking down, in fact, the first of the AM cars, the 888. Kessel Racing, pretty impressive, up in 13th.
Is that a Nicky Caddy time, perchance? It is, yes. It's now dropping slightly because you've got up to the pointy end now Dries Van Thorp. He's gone 6th, and Davide Rigon has gone 7th. Great little Audi fight going on as carving through the traffic there is number 1. This has got to be a favoured car, hasn't it? Very sideways, number 1, Antonio Garcia, Nico Müller, and the redoubtable René Rast, and it's René Rast at the wheel of it.
Strange, I mean, normally René Rast never gets a wheel out of line, but that looked very unstable. So what's happening? The Aston coming in. I thought maybe, did he clip somebody?
Oh, he did, he got his mechanic, didn't he? Oh, dear.
Oh, that's a bit unfortunate because that could be very painful indeed.
Yeah. Now there's the Ben Barnicoat McLaren in the pit lane. So I said it had done an installation lap, and clearly all is not well, and there is more evidence of it.
Yeah, they're all diving in and around. I thought maybe there was something to do with the brakes. hard to tell. Too many people working around just the radiator, behind the radiator, whatever it is they're working at.
That's a very McLaren, isn't it? In as much as it's the orange
it's
and the old font for McLaren cars up the door.
Yeah. I mean, it's what people remember McLaren from those halcyon days of Can-Am in particular, where they dominated for goodness knows how many years, and then they got steamrolled by the 917s.
That's right. The Porsches came along, didn't they, with the turbo engines, and that
flat
was
12
the death knell of turbos. It's a long stop. There's a frustrated Cohn-Ledegaard looking on we saw a moment ago, but this does not bode well, does it, for the McLaren? It's eating into track time here. Oil going in.
It is oil going, but it's... That's part of the, I think, the power steering pump that they're having maybe had to bleed. It's just something with the steering, which was surprising.
Could it be a leak in the power steering? Losing all its fluid?
Also, they need to get that oil filtered through the power pump.
I just came back to the sick bay for a moment. That mechanic we saw at TF being clipped, he's okay, stood up, carried on with his job. He's not allowed to be in pain until Tuesday when he's back home. But the report is that he's okay.
Excellent, good news. So a bad start for the 58 McLaren, still in the pits. Ben Barnicoat has done a great job, in my view, as a permanent driver in the Straka team. Look at now you see what he's doing with the wheels. That's how you cycle fluid, hydraulic fluid, which is what it is, through the pump. You have to turn the wheels, and then eventually it'll all bleed through and it'll get rid of anything that doesn't or shouldn't be there. So hopefully when he goes out he'll have power steering. There's the 22 Nissan. So that's the car driven by the younger of the drivers, Matt Simmons, Matt Parry and Struan Moore. And Matt Parry in particular, I think, has been very impressive.
And so too Struan Moore, moving from McLaren to Nissan. If he changed his name to Matt, he'd probably get more credit, more kudos in that team. But Struan Moore, ex-single-seater racer, has done another impressive job. Behind the wheel of the car at the moment, he says hunting down the times for it, is the aforementioned Matt Parry. Thank you, there it is. It's up on the screen. In the Motel Team RJN Motorsport car, Bob Neville's squad that operates these cars. Out of La Source, you see the cars in the pit lane. It's the two pit lanes combined, so you come into the F1 pits and the endurance pits, it's all one. There were drivers shortcutting this morning, either going out after the F1 or coming in only for the endurance, and they were given monetary fines accordingly. So straight away the stewards making sure that people do the proper pit lane.
And of course, when I was mentioning those mid-engine, front-engine cars, I sort of left out the Nissan, but actually it's more of a front-engine GT car than the aforementioned three others, in particular BMW, Bentley. Oh, bodywork.
That's one of the floppy markers. I was about to say it's done the absolute best of anybody in the first sector, and then Matt Parry accosts the trackside furniture there.
I was also about to say he showed a lot of commitment, but a lot of confidence as well coming through Eau Rouge. He was able to lean on the outside edge of the car. The car just bit and hunkered down and shot him up over the top of radio. And that's where he got that great straight line speed from. He's
also now got traffic, so this lap in danger of being compromised. He goes to the inside at the double gauche, or point if you prefer, and zaps through on the inside there. The gun time is still the 2:19.4 set by Mirko Bortolotti. That car, 63 Lamborghini, now has Christian Engelhardt behind the wheel, but we're about to find out, I suspect, what Matt Parry has lost in this middle sector. He comes now through Fagnes, or the Piff Paff in old money, and will accelerate his way now down towards Campus and then the Cours Paul Frère. So the Nissan, number 22, that was quite a long way down at the start of this lap, heading up towards the end of that middle sector. And it's still a personal best, so it should get the car up towards the pointy end. And while we're watching this, the sister car with Lucas Ordóñez at the wheel has gone third fastest. So the Nissans both now showing good pace, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think that they always felt that circuits like Spa-Francorchamps was going to work to their favour. Some of the other circuits that we go to throughout the season, some cars work better on some than others, and this is a circuit that the Nissan team, run by Bob Neville, always feel that they are certainly going to be, well, fifth quickest. So we've now got third and fifth quickest for the two Nissans. So they'll be, at this point, feeling we've got something we can work with.
Number 5, Dries Van Thor, as you see a replay of Matt Parry clobbering the cones. Dries Vanthoor's had his last warning for track limits. Very tight line into Les Combes. Takes that marker. It's not actually a floppy marker. It's quite a substantial one, that. But he takes that for a ride. And the Nissan booms up the hill then. So it is at the moment Lamborghini, Audi, Nissan, Audi, Nissan, Audi, the leading order. Great shot of the cars making that long climb up the hill, including the yellow AF Corsa Ferrari there, the Lathorus Pierguidi Rugolo car. And this is the scene in the RJN pit bunker. Where is Le Patron? On the pit wall, I suspect. Bob with his clipboard and his headset.
Oh yeah, he'll be out there, and
it's Alex Buncombe,
Alex Buncombe just preparing to take over and look at the Dunyas in the 23 Nissan. Struan Moore looks like he's about to do similarly in the 22.
Indeed.
So again, primarily people just working their way through, giving each driver a reasonable run. I bet they're going to use how many sets of tyres in this session, so who gets to do the first run will have more than likely the freshest set of tyres. You look back from Les Combes down the straight. Duncan Cameron or Matt Griffin in the Ferrari. There was discussion about that car that was damaged here during the test. Was it damaged here in the test?
I think so.
And they weren't sure, but they've painted another car in the colours.
It might have been British GT, forgive me. I think it might have been the British GT round that the car was damaged in. Marco Seafried here in the Jaguar, the Emil Frey Jaguar, around the outside of the traffic, which includes the national class cars.
And I keep seeing more mid-front engine cars. So I've left out the Nissan, I've left out the Jaguar. Both would qualify for me as being more true to the ethos of what a front engine GT car is. Nevertheless, the progress that ML Frey Racing have made with this XJR8 is very impressive indeed, and they've now got speed and reliability and are not to be dismissed.
We keep hearing stories, don't we, that they might have a change of brand for the future, but it would be a great shame if we lost this car, because it's been a real underdog, a real good news story as it's got better and better.
And I think the thing that might be behind all that is, of course, these cars, it's no longer in production in this current form, so its homologation may be coming close to an end, but of course we have just to wait and see as we watch Marco Seafried coming up the hill into Blanchimont. Still a challenge, and you can see behind the Porsche runs very, very wide indeed, and no doubt will get some notice because that was well and truly off the racetrack, and the benefit that it derived was that it was able to come out of Blanchimont a little bit quicker than the Jaguar and therefore get the pass made before they got up to the final two turns up into 18 and 19. So no change presently over the last couple of laps at the top.
No.
Top three primarily.
Stephen Kane at the wheel of the Bentley, as ever, is worth watching. In fact, stand up for this, because whenever you put Stephen Kane in a car, it comes alive. Not saying that Guy Smith, for example, is slow, nor is Ollie Jarvis, but there's just something about the way Stephen goes, and there's the evidence, John.
Yeah, unfortunately, caught behind one of the Mercedes AMG GT3s, so that's clearly, I mean, he's over a second down, probably a second and a half down on what is the current fastest mid-sector of this racetrack. So all the good work in Sector 1, and he needs now to get through as quickly as possible. Otherwise, it'll be another lap lost. So can Stephen Kane find a way to slide it down the middle? Yes, he has. A little bit of cooperation from the 85 Mercedes. So that allows Stephen Kane the chance, and he deliberately held up the Mercedes to get himself into position.
But he lost 1.3 seconds in the middle sector.
Easy.
So 1.3 seconds down. The lap time in the end will bring him up the order, but not anything like what he wanted. So a frustrating lap. And let's stay with him now that he's got a clear road in front of him. So 31st in the times is the Bentley. Okay, that's mid-grid. We've got 62 times set, 63 cars. Yeah. So mid-grid.
Clear track. Opportunity to, once again, get a purple in Sector 1. And again, the Bentley, it's a large car, but it's one of those cars that's very light. I call it on its feet, on its suspension. It's a car that gives drivers a great deal of confidence and the ability to lean on the rear of a car, especially on a circuit like Spa-Francorchamps, where you've got long corners and you want to have that confidence to turn the wheel, to stand on the throttle and know that the car isn't going to give you a fright. It's a 39.6, not as good as his previous lap in Sector 1. And that was a clear run pretty much up through that sector. So maybe Stephen Kane had a set of tyres that just now have seen the best on his last lap. That's always the frustration when you meet traffic with 61 or more cars circulating, not literally all at one time as we speak, but certainly out and about. So it comes down into Fagna, puts the car back to the left. You don't want to ride the curb too wide on the exit.
He's having a warning about track limits. So
what did I just say?
Exactly. It's there, but he's pushing on and traffic up the road, but he should escape on this lap, shouldn't he?
Looks like it would have been personal best, so he's picked up virtually the second that he was down on what was previously the fastest mid-sector time. So he might see a small improvement. Sister car is currently in 15th on a 2:20.654. So that's sort of the benchmark that you can gauge your pace against. So Stephen Kane, 2 corners to go, gets cleanly and neatly and into the pit lane.
Okay, Bales then. There also in the pit lane is number 14. So Albert Costa brought the car in, the Emil Frey Jaguar, the sister car to the 114 we'd seen earlier. That's some sort of energy drink, that nasty looking liquid on the roof. And are they going to do a driver change when they send that car back out? We'll see in a moment as it slips down the order now, because up to 40th has just gone Giacomo Piccini. So Albert Costa's Jaguar was in. You're looking at the Rover Racing BMW now, of course, the team, the brand that won last year. BMW, the most successful manufacturer in the history of the Spa 24 Hours, because, of course, for many, many years, BMW was a mainstay of the European Touring Car Championship, of which this was a key round for 2 decades or so. And then when it kind of went through its lost period in the 90s, when it was a real ragamuffin saloon car series, there were BMW's M3s and then 318s that came and won, 320s. So BMW's got this great track record, but last year the winners, Alexander Sims, Philippe Eng, and finally Maxime Martin. This is the car, though, in the hands of Bruno Spengler, Nick Katzberg and Tom Blomqvist, another competitive combination.
Yeah, and if you think back to the early 70s with the 635 3-litre CSL with its Batmobile wing.
Yeah.
Revolutionary, and what an iconic car, a collector's car for those that can find a genuine one. There's a few lemons floating around, but certainly a genuine one is something to cherish. Down into Fagna again, usual story. Traffic on an out lap, you're on a flying lap, you get caught at the wrong part of the racetrack, not being politically, or particularly helpful. And that was the Craig Fleming, Nick Leventis, Lewis Williams and Oliver Webb. McLaren could have done better. When you see a car coming and catching you quickly, you really ought to try and, you know, you're on an out lap, you're not doing anything that's particularly critical. So up the hill into this long, probably on new tyres in qualifying trim, flat as a kipper, and then out of it, and immediately you've got the right curve, then hard on the brakes. But coming into these final 2 corners, it's more a case of less haste, more speed, because it's the exit out of turn 19 where all the good work, 24th position, way off the potential that that car has got. But still, early days, 25 and just over 25 and a half minutes remaining. And again, that long drop down, and sort of you have to sort of think, can I take Eau Rouge flat? And you know before you get there whether you can or not. You know whether the car's going to be with you or it's going to give you a nasty fright. And when you get to the top of radio, you don't want the nasty fright.
No, indeed. Interesting to compare the McLaren and the Mercedes here. The McLaren staying ahead. You always think the Mercedes has lots of grunt in a straight line, but Nick Leventis almost hung on to the end of the run up towards Les Combes there, but eventually up the inside went Edward Sandstrom in that Mercedes. And it wasn't it Paul Ricard that every McLaren driver was complaining, we are so slow in a straight. Yeah. And they were. Absolutely. I mean, they were 12, 14 kilometres down on the quickest, which I think was yet again our friends from Nissan. Well, they're the straight line speed, and that is dictated
apart by the exit of Eau Rouge, so undoubtedly the Mercedes maybe struggle. Somebody again has knocked a corner marker and it's just skidded all the way off to the right of the racetrack. So the BOP, which is the basics of the Blancpain GT Sprint and Endurance Championship, is a never-moving formula. So we give a bit here, take a bit there. So we don't know whether McLaren have maybe been given a little bit of additional relief. 117 Porsche currently down in 12th place. So is that Laurens Vanthoor? It is Laurens Vanthoor. First time I've seen him in his new home this year.
Indeed, yes, Porsche factory driver, and of course has been racing in the States, raced at Le Mans, and makes a welcome return to Spa, and up against his brother, of course, who is in the 10th fastest Audi. So there is this little competition going on at the moment. You've got one of the cars being 12th and the other being 10th between the two brothers. So there is the Porsche, Laurens Vanthoor at the wheel of it, then down towards the bus stop, this re-profile bus stop dating back to 2007, and then they accelerate up towards the timing line. Is it going to be an improvement on this lap? I don't think it is. The sectors haven't been looking all that flash. No, it's a gentle lap. That's on a race sim by the look of it for Laurens Vanthoor.
But he also had a little bit of traffic to contend with, so... Wow, listen to that flat six. Oh, its way out of La Source, down the hill, plucking gears. What a plucky driver.
It could be a winner, this car. Porsche here to win. They're not here to make up the numbers. Obviously, a lot of thought has gone into switching from Olaf Mantai's squad, which is absolutely ingrained in Porsche, to Timo Bernhardt's team in order to try and win this. And also bear in mind that within the Pro-Am cars, you've got one or two factory drivers now dotted about, because if you have a look down to 911, you've got Mark Lieb in there, and 912. These are the two Herbev Motorsport cars. 912 has got Sven Muller and Mathieu Géminet in it. So there's home for some of the other factory drivers to help go and win in Pro-Am.
Yeah, I mean, when you're fortunate enough to have a contract with the manufacturer, it doesn't necessarily state that you will be driving in a specific championship. They place you in a variety of championships, wherever and whenever it is to the advantage of the company.
Andrew Watson, the Northern Irishman in the McLaren, is being given a 10-minute stop-and-go penalty for track limit abuse. So, you know, when I said they got more and more draconian, race director Alain Adam has now had enough of that car being warned. So, driving standards flag has been shown. He's talked to the team on the radio to warn them to try and rein in the driver. If it transgresses again, it's a stop-go penalty. So 10 minutes, the car must stay in the pit lane.
It's strange because Andrew is a very, very bright young man. He's a pretty impressive young driver.
He is
as well.
That, yes.
And I mean, you'll imagine that he's getting the message from the pit lane via radio, or if not by radio, by visual means on a pit board. Somewhere the message isn't getting through, and you don't need to lose that amount of time in a relatively short session with just over 20 minutes of it remaining.
And as you say, 20 minutes remaining, so drivers at some point are going to have to start thinking about qualifying mode, but of course that'll be towards the end of that session as the temperatures start to drop. Still very humid, and then we get into night qualifying. Everybody must go out and have at least 3 laps within the night session if they are able to do. If the car's got a problem, then it becomes a different story. Now, Alex Bunkum's on a warning, his last warning for track limits.
Not like Alex Bunkum.
Well, exactly. I'm assuming this is per driver.
He's a proper chap.
He is. I'm assuming it's per driver rather than per car, but either way, 23 Nissan, and Alex is at the wheel, is about to cop.
Yeah, it is the car that gets the penalty, not the driver, and sometimes it is unfortunate that you might transgress once, but your teammates have done it, so it could be the case, but normally Alex is not somebody who I remember seeing, you know, exceeding pit lane speed limit, track limits on a consistent basis.
He had his big accident here, didn't he, a good few seasons back when he had that breakage.
That was a nasty moment with the wheel nut or the wheel detached, and the car coming up over Eau Rouge didn't quite get to the top of radio, but it was a big old impact backwards into the barrier.
Looking at Marco Giocci, we saw 55, the Kaspersky Ferrari, in the pit lane a little while ago, and he's back out, and he's currently 17th fastest. So this is a car that, actually, given the quality of driver, hasn't really delivered what you might have anticipated in the Endurance Cup this season. Fisichella, Chiocci, Collado, all good drivers. It's a proper team in AF Corsa. There's good budget there, but it's just not really shown the results that you might have anticipated, which might illustrate how competitive the championship is.
Well, the championship we know is mighty competitive. 2 personal bests for Chiocci, so let's assume currently 17th, and he just elevated himself up there on his previous lap. So this might be a further improvement. May not be a massive amount, might be a couple of tenths of a second, but in that he could probably jump about 3 or 4 places further up timing and scoring. So comes out of turn 19, final turn, behind the Jaguar, not interfering. Currently 17th. Let's see where car 55 ends up, and it ends up in 7th.
Good lap. So 7th fastest. Is that the best of the Ferraris? I think it is, isn't it? So it's now Lamborghini, Audi, Nissan, Audi, Nissan, Audi, Ferrari at the top of the leaderboard. There is 75, which is back in the hands of Clemens Schmidt that did the good time at the very start of the session. New livery for the ISR car, the Austrian at the wheel of it, who's developing into a very nice GT race. He's just got on with this and taken part in national championships before putting himself onto a big stage, and gets better and better all the time.
I mean, Clemens Schmidt is one of the drivers who comes through in German GT championships, whatever else he's raced in, and sometimes you can get buried in your own national championships, no matter how high a level they are. But to come on to the international platform, well, Clemens Schmidt is one that has stood up to the plate and delivered.
Absolutely. But having got that mileage first of all. So there he is out of La Source, runs a little bit wide, but notice the double curbing there. You've got the sort of sausage curb behind to prevent you gaining any real advantage. Ben Barnicoat back on track, and now also starting to do lap times, so he's getting himself up the order. 55th that car is, out of 63. Everybody that we have has now set a time. The slowest car being Lars Philip Sernen's Speed Lover Porsche that's in the AM Cup.
Personal best, well, that would probably be almost a given, in that the car has not done the number of laps others around it have done. They were working around the power steering and pump. So Ben Barnicoat much neater on the exit coming out of Les Combes. Now the drop down, this sort of off-camber, long 180-degree Bruxelles corner, then the cut back to the corner that some people give a name to, others say it's the corner of no name. Then this is the part of the racetrack that really, you know, it's a test of your courage as well as your skill into Pujol. It's the entry, get it right, and the rest just flows.
It's a great livery, isn't it, this? That's been a competition design. You've got the traditional McLaren on one side, and you've got the lightning striking on the other. So you look at it on one side of the track, it's the orange McLaren. Look at it from the other, it's the black McLaren. There it is. You can see that stunning design.
You sure you like it?
Yes.
Really?
It's ancient and modern combined. You've got the funky new and the old heritage there.
Really?
Yeah. It's just like you and I, John.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, heritage and funky.
I thought they'd run out of orange paint.
So to the timing line it will come in a moment, and Ben Barnicoat at the wheel of it, 55th, and 2 personal bests in sectors. So let's see how he gets on. He's being monstered, isn't he, as well, there by Jordan Pepper in the Audi that nips up the inside, the car that's second fastest at the moment. Jordan Pepper, the South African, blasts his way through, so you should get improvements out of both of them. Jordan Pepper, 2:19.9 last lap through, and what does Ben Barnicoat do? He goes up to 49 fastest, so yeah, improving all the time.
Yeah, that was a pretty courageous move down the inside. Ben Barnicoat wasn't about to give that track position away, but the Audi got it stopped. He was a little bit deep into the corner, but managed to keep it on track and effectively forestalled any opportunity for Ben Barnicoat to try and sling it up the inside. Committed coming through Eau Rouge. I mean, that's not hanging around. It's Clemens Schmidt,
who is 3rd fastest. So apologies, it was not Jordan Pepper. Jordan had just set that lap time, and the Lumirang hadn't updated because the car hadn't tripped the timing beam. So yes, Clemens Schmidt was the one that got through. He's now 3rd in the times, not 2nd as he was when we last saw the car up behind the McLaren. Meantime, the bright yellow Bentley, Nico Verdon, Christo Jurns and Jordan Pepper. This is the one that's 2nd fastest now. Jordan Pepper graduating is, in a sense, from Audis to Bentleys, staying in the family. And So this car run by Abt, not by M Sport, but by the Hans-Jürgen Abt team. Out of luck in the Nürburgring 24 hours this year, but here could be onto something. Nico the Donk, quick driver as well.
Interesting to watch the way the Bentley coming through campus was able to ride the curb in the inside, and it didn't make the car deflect. There's a lot of compliance in the suspension of the Bentley, and what's the surprise? Because it comes from a company, M Sport, that it was a rally company fundamentally, but just watching the way the Bentley rode those curbs again just makes the life of the driver that little bit easier, a little bit more comfortable.
You know, we keep banging on about...
Overruns and loses time.
And goes for the pits, yeah.
That was a late cut back into the pit lane.
We keep going on about how competitive Blancpain is. Well, 16th and 17th share a time to the 1,000th of a second, okay? Get this, Philippe Eng and Maxime Soulet, both on a 2:20.654, and behind them is Nick Homerson, and he's 1,000th behind them. So 3 cars covered by 1,000th of a second. How about that?
Great stuff. But still, it's the 63 Lamborghini. Time set way early in the session. In fact, the Lamborghini has only completed 13 laps, and his best lap was set on his 3rd lap, and it's remained. Alessandro Pierguidi in the Ferrari. This is a car and a driver, maybe not this particular car, it was actually a 458, that Alessandro Pierguidi started from the front row from pole position. I remember talking to him on the grid, and then he dropped it at the top of Eau Rouge.
He did indeed, yes. I had a feeling he was the outside of the front row, because it was Stefan Mucker on pole in the Beach Dean Aston that year. Yeah, but you're right, front of the grid. And it was a massive heart-in-mouth moment for everybody.
And that was in the commentary booth.
Yes, exactly right. The race director didn't breathe for a good few minutes, and nor did everybody else behind, and they got away with that. And of course, it was that year's race that we had lots of dramatic accidents in the first 6 hours or so. Who's at the wheel of 50, did you say, John?
Alessandro Pierguidi, that's what it showed on screen.
Right, you are right, yes, 21st fastest. So he's hustling on, but he's got a bit stuck at the moment behind the Mercedes, hasn't he? Which is the 18. It's a Pro-Am car, that. And that is, at the moment, Giorgio Piana at the wheel of it. No, Abdulaziz bin Al-Faisal, I'll tell you a lie. So there's Pierguidi. The Mercedes not really helping his case here. The sector time's not improving.
No, there's nothing you can do about it. Both cars are doing their work. There's no requirement for what might be a slower car to let a quicker car go through. You might say there would be a little bit of etiquette in it, but there's no requirement. Certainly not in a session like this. Come the race, and that was the lead car coming up to lap, getting the blue flag waved, but the blue flag is quite a long way away from the corner, so your line of sight probably wouldn't really see it. So Pierguidi really backs off and tries to create a bit of space. In fact, he's had enough of that game, into the pit lane, and let the Mercedes go on its happy way.
Interesting that the teams, who of course can talk to the race director, are also staying on top of the situation about track limits, and Abt has just shouted back to say, we're on our last warning, we've not had our first warning yet, so what happened to those? So they want to find out what's going on in the system, but the last warning is there published for number 9 for track limits. Jordan Pepper is now pitted, second fastest.
Good question. Where are the other warnings?
Warning has broken. Lawrence Van Thor in the pit lane, in the Porsche. I have to keep saying in the Porsche, otherwise I think he's in an Audi still, after so many years with WRT. And yesterday at the driver's briefing, he received his Intercontinental GT Challenge Champions Trophy. Of course, the total 24 hours of Spa, part of the Intercontinental GT Challenge, as also is the Bathurst 12 hours, as is the 8 hours at Laguna Seca, and of course the Sepang 12 hours that we look forward to at the end of the year.
Yep, that's something to look forward to, as Miguel Molina makes his way downhill. SMP Racing. He's Spanish. So down the hill, and it's funny when you stand at the top of the source and look down, it is incredibly steep, but when you're behind the wheel you get a different perspective. You're not really quite as aware of the degree of decline into Eau Rouge, but when you get to the bottom of Eau Rouge, then you get that you get the compression, and then up the top, and then you feel like you're flying as the car gets really light.
And do that with another 10 or 12 cars all battling with you. It's a very, very dramatic part of the circuit. So 72 Ferrari then, trying to get itself up the order. Miguel Molina 14th. It went well, didn't it, at the start of the year at Monza in the endurance round there. This car that's got some AF Corsa assistance, but goes under the SMP racing banner. Miguel Molina moving from Audi's DTM project to GT Racing and has adapted very efficiently, as you might anticipate. But he says finding wood to touch, we've got through without any real dramas so far. We've got no damage, thankfully. We've had no spinners. It's been a very calm 50 minutes so far.
Well, as I said at the top of the show, I think actually track conditions, ambient and track temperature, are very conducive. We don't have that sort of Spa weather where you've got a cold, horrible, wet day. It's actually quite pleasant. If the clouds would clear, it'd be a cracker. It'd be a beautiful evening.
Yeah. Yeah, some heavy rain this morning that made the circuit a little bit damp offline for the free practice session, but already got through that largely without too many dramas. Molina up the inside of the Am Cup Porsche. That's the RMS run car of Howard Blank, Franck Mechely, Yannick Malagol, and through on the inside they go. Sort out the Am Cup Porsche.
And the Porsche, just watching as it came out of Blanchimont, all four wheels well and truly off the racetrack. I'm sure that'll be a notification as the Ferrari comes in. So just 8.5 minutes of the session remaining, and teams have just basically used this 1 hour to cycle through all three drivers, get them to get a feel for the track. It is pretty consistent. Track conditions have remained consistent throughout this session, so great opportunity to give all your three drivers an equal opportunity to see what the car's like. Then we'll go into the first of the qualifying sessions, and then the nighttime session on board with Christian Engelhardt in the fastest car overall right now. So it's only done this one, it's completed 16 laps. But he has to feather it, he's not flat out all the way through. Takes a bit of curb on the inside over radio, but onboard shots to savour. Makes the long uphill climb up the Hummel straight, passes one of the Ferraris on the right hand side. It's cruising back. Where's he going to brake? Just before the 100 metres. Down the gearbox, paddle shifts, of course. Of course, this is where you realise that these are fundamentally production-based race cars. They have a lot of downforce, but they're also, in relative terms, fairly heavy. So you have to be a little bit patient before you can really get back on the throttle. You've got to let the car settle. Christian Engelhardt just being a little bit cautious, getting past the 56 Porsche. Now down the hill, watch what he does into Puo. Well, a bit of a lift, actually quite a long lift. Gentle back on the throttle. Can't really do an awful lot with the Audi directly ahead of him. He would like to clear that wherever he possibly can. This is not going to be a lap that's going to be one to savour or for Christian Engelhardt to have much memory of, because it's been compromised by traffic. But that's what you get. You get, oh, and a bit wide going into the campus. Gathers it back up into Paul Frere Courbe. Watch the outside. You will get nailed if you use more than you're permitted to do. It turn 17 coming up. That's Blanchimont on the double left. Is it flat again for the Lamborghini? Well, the merest little sort of breathe, not coming off it. Oh, and somebody's kicked a bit of dust onto the racetrack. And still, the Lamborghini cannot do anything to make its way around the Audi directly ahead. So this is not going to be a lap anywhere near 122.4. Contrast that, is 3 seconds slower than Mirko Bortolotti, but they might well be on that same set of tyres that the car began the session, what, 55 minutes or so ago.
We have another black flag being offered to a car for age-old track limit abuse, I'm afraid. It's 51, which is the Ishikawa Motoaki, Lorenzo Bontempelli, Olivier Beretta, Francesco Castellacci Ferrari. And who's behind the wheel of it? Motoaki at the moment. There, 21st fastest, Michael Meadows has brought the Mercedes in for a new set of tyres.
I do like, I mean, it's a bit like, you know, it's almost like a Saltar on the Mercedes-Benz, you know, the Scottish flag.
It does work on that car, doesn't it?
It does. It's a great colour for the shape of the car. Normally that car would be bright red, to go back to the 8 Bentley, having a quick look down to see where it is. It's Vincent Abril, the young Monegasque, the most emotional young racing driver I've ever met. I mean, after Paul Ricard, I mean, if you had buckets, he would have filled them with tears. He was so emotional. In fact, all 3 drivers were absolutely. I saw Andy Soucek and Goodwood a couple of weeks later, and he just was. Even he was still bubbling about what it meant to the 3 of them to win, and Paul Ricard.
So we've got just 4 more minutes of the session to go, then they have a break, and then we've got effectively 3.5 hours, the best part of a 4-hour block at the very end of the day, with night qualifying following the qualifying session. So that takes us through to Super Pole tomorrow, and then into 24 hours of racing. It's an enormously busy timetable, because not only do you have lots of GT action for these cars, we've got practice and qualifying and 2 races for the Blancpain GT Sports Club. Formula 3 gets 3 races and 2 qualifying and 2 free practice. There was the bronze test for these cars on Tuesday. And there's also the Lamborghini Super Trofeo and the Peugeot 308 Championship as well. So if you're a fan of motor racing and you come to the Spa 24 hours, from Thursday morning, as soon as the cars hit the track, it is almost relentless, isn't it, until Sunday afternoon?
I mean, you have the parade into Spa itself, with the cars, race cars, on the road. I mean, where would you see that?
Oh, no, it's fantastic.
Well, there are other circuits, but certainly it is great to see the competitors all involved and thoroughly enjoying it, and really it's all for the fans.
And that parade gets bigger and better attended every year. Drivers are there signing autographs, there are more and more giveaways, and the town last night was very, very busy indeed. Bars do a roaring trade.
Did you drink a bit of beer then?
No, I didn't have a single beer all night last night. I went to the wrong party, clearly.
So Vincent Abril a little bit wide coming out of turn 17. Let's see what he does. 220.5, and that is an improvement for the number 8 Bentley, up to 14th place. Well, it was 14th, it's now dropped to 15th, because 333 Rinaldi Racing has gone second quickest. Norbert Siedler has gone second quickest in the Pro-Am Ferrari.
Wow. So Daniel Kylvitz, having crashed here on the test and breaking a leg, not here. We're 3 wide up towards Fagnes. Norbert Siedler drafted into that car, and as you would expect, is making it absolutely fly. You're looking at 84 at the moment, which has got Franck Pereira behind the wheel of it, and he's done a personal best in the first sector, as you can see. He's had to sort out some traffic, but he's getting on with the job. Now toward the Cours Paul Frere he comes. This has the makings of being a decent lap. He's lost ground in the traffic, admittedly, but he's still pushing.
Yeah, he's lost the best part of half a second, 0.6 of a second, because of the traffic. But Frank, you know, he just drags a performance out of a race car. Good entry into Blanchimont, good exit, no abuse. I was talking about Bourneville. I drove up through Bourneville this morning coming to the circuit. What a corner that was. Still is.
You found the old Master Kink as well, no doubt. It's a great place, this. The history of Spa, of course, is a mixed one.
14th, so no improvement.
Kazumasa Chio has taken over the 23 Nissan. We have had an improvement from Vincent Abril. He's now gone 15th, and there is now less than a lap time left in the session, so it might be pit in this time for Franck Pereira, depending on whether he gets a clear run, and it's worth pushing whether this is a simulated qualifying run or whether it's just track time. I reckon it's a simulated quali run.
Well, I tell you what, the way he went into Eau Rouge and came out of Eau Rouge and up over Radio, that was commitment.
Yeah.
So I'll be looking for the corner time or the sector times for 84. I think this is the lap that Franck Pereira is going to nail. A strong time, currently 15th on a 2 minutes 20.5. If he doesn't get under 2 minutes 20.5, well, I'll have to be economical with what I have for dinner tonight.
Clement Schmidt, meantime, was held up a little bit by Daniele Perfetti in the Mercedes, but he's wriggled clear now. The flag is imminent. There's another driver on a last warning for track limits. It's 16 now, which is the Black Falcon. Oliver Morley, Miguel Toril, Maxi Goetz, Marvin Kirchhofer, Mercedes.
Bits of rubbish on the track just being kicked up. In the meantime, Alessandro Pierguidi is up to 10th place in the 50 Ferrari. That's its best performance to date, but that's 0.8 of a second slower than the time that was set, what, the best part of 50-odd minutes ago. Checkered flag is going to be displayed, so cars that come across the line have to finish their run, and the 888 Ferrari dives into Kessel Racing, dives into the pit lane as some others are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Waiting to see where is Frank Pereira, 39.0 in Sector 1, 104 personal best Sector 2, and a 39.9 is a tenth of a second slower than the time that the Lamborghini. What are they all doing here? Tripping over each other, trying to think they can get into the down.
Well, either that or I think somebody felt they'd been impeded on their lap and was playing silly devils.
Well, that was not very bright, whatever happened.
That's a good livery, isn't it? The Panini sticker album Porsche in the pits.
There is the Ferrari. Alessandro Pierguidi currently in 10th, personal best in Sector 1. Still allowed to compete this lap. Nothing special in Sector 2. Frank Pereira, 84, completes the lap, 2:20.437. And that's his best lap, and he's up to 13th. But no, he stays in 13th.
He was down in the first and third sectors, wasn't he? So it didn't really pan out for him. But we'll see what comes in qualifying, as here is Pierguidi.
Oh, Jaguar. It did almost end up at Malmedy.
Back on again. But again, Pierguidi's going to caught for traffic, isn't he, right at the very end here? That Black Falcon Mercedes we've not seen much of as Pierguidi goes for the pit lane. Number 4, the white Mercedes. That could be a dark horse as well, given that it's the Adam Christodoulou, Jelmer Berman, Lukas Stolz car. So Pierguidi 10th at the end of the session. And we've still got a few more to take the flag, but we're almost there. There, 21st is Louis Machiels. Brings the Ferrari to the end of the session. And the best time done by Mirko Bortolotti. He ends pre-qualifying fastest. Let's hear from him.
Mirko, fastest driver in pre-qualifying. You must be happy with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, good start to the week, I would say. Good start to the weekend so far. We're going through our work plan. It's such a long week, such a long race. So many sessions to come up. But it's definitely nice to start like this. Car feels pretty good. The team is working really hard, everybody. So yeah, we are so far so good at the moment. Pleased with the progress we're doing. Yeah, let's try to continue like this, obviously.
Well, I hope the other competitors know they're going to have to watch out for you on track. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hope so.
So Mirko Bortolotti ends pre-qualifying as the fastest. He was leading until the car had a mechanical problem and retired from a German GT round last week. So disappointment hopefully behind him. Looking forward to a good, a positive weekend here in the Grasser Racing Team Lamborghini. We'll have a look at the times and the highlights in a few moments, but it is Lamborghini, Ferrari, the top two. So Mirko Bortolotti topping the times on a 2:19.435 ahead of number 333 Ferrari Norbert Siedler for Rinaldi Racing. Third, interesting this, it was Jordan Pepper for the Abt Bentley team ahead of Clement Schmidt in the Audi, then Lucas Ordóñez, Nissan, and the Pierre Caffer, Frank Stifler, Calvin van der Linde, Audi 6th. Nissan 7th, Audi 8th. We've not really touched on number 2, but we should do because Conor De Filippi and Christopher Mies, part of the Nürburgring 24-hour winning combination this year, and the Land team that won it, it's that crew joining into Blancpain. We've not seen Wolfgang Land's team here before, so interesting to see how that squad gets on. Conor De Filippi, the American, is a real talent. First came to Europe in Formula Ford 1600. Is part of Jeremy Shaw's USA scholarship a few years back, but after racing in Porsches in Germany and now GT, very much a man to watch. We've got 63 cars. You can have a look for yourself how close the gaps are. We're talking thousands going down through the order. But of course, until we really get to the qualifying session coming up in a little while, we don't have a true indication of who is hot and who's not. But we know that down in 34th is the number 7 Bentley. There's more to come from that. And what about number 1? 36th, Garcia, Muller and Rast. No way is that the 36th quickest car here. So that's another one that will get up through the order when we get to the really serious business. Number 4 Mercedes I mentioned just at the end of the session. Jelmer Berman, Adam Christo and Lucas Stolz, only 37th. That's another car that will fly when we get to the serious business. And you've got Mathieu Jaminet and Sven Muller in number 912 Porsche. That also you can anticipate being up the order as well. Mark Lieb only 45th, but he may not actually have got in the car in that session. It might have been dedicated to the amateur drivers to get their eye in. Richard Lyons, good to have him back. He's in number 3 WRT Audi with Josh Cahill, John Venter and Nicky Malmhoff. number 60 of Alexander West, Chris Goodwin, Chris Harris, and former British GT champion Bradley Ellis down at 60th. And there are final 3 cars in pre-qualifying. Let's have a look then at the highlights of the session. A race won by BMW last year, so all eyes upon number 99 as it got ready to go out. Early problems though for McLaren. Number 58 spending a lot of time in the pit lane after an installation lap. Nissan grabbing the headlines early on, some competitive lap times being offered up by Matt Parry, then by Struan Moore. And when 58 did get back out on track, it had work to do. Jimmy Erickson was pushing in the 84 Mercedes, using lots of road as he made the run up through Les Combes. But Mirko Bortolotti very rapidly was able to get himself onto a good pace and go fastest by just under 0.4 of a second as Laurens Vanthoor clambered aboard number 117 Porsche. Ollie Jarvis amongst those having a look at what was going on. He's aboard number 7 Bentley with Stephen Kane and Guy Smith. Dust kicked into the face of others as they headed down towards the bus stop. And with cars leaving the pit lane, this very busy field streaming its way around Spa. And lockout for the Mercedes, and at the flag, it was the number 63 Lamborghini on top with 991 heading in the hands of Lars Philip Surnam to its pit bunker. So that's pre-qualifying done. Now it gets really serious because we will have the qualifying session coming up. We'll be on air from 8 o'clock local time. We'll see you then from John Watson and David Addison. For now, bye-bye.